Look, we've been over this before. You can't go after the neighbor's dog. I know you're hungry. What about the turkeys? We've got a lot of wild turkeys around here. No, I've never tried to eat a turkey brain. They're too small. Okay. What about the groundhogs? You've eaten all the groundhogs. Coyotes. They're too scared to come back in the area. Okay. Well, look. Tomorrow I'll go to the butcher and see if I can get you some cow brains, okay? Yes. Don't argue with me on this. The show's starting. I'm going to have to do the show. We'll talk about this tomorrow. Yes, we will. Now, stop being so obstinate. Hey, gang. It's me, Uncle Todd here. It's Sunny. Having a little problem. She keeps attacking the neighbor's dog to eat his brain. Well, that does bring us to tonight's flick. The Brain Eaters from 1958. Was produced and stars Ed Nelson, who was a familiar face among fans of TV. He's been in everything from Twilight Zone to MacGyver, the TV soap Dallas, Murder, She Wrote, just any show from the 50s through the 90s, you might have seen him. Baywatch, all that stuff. And it was directed by Bruno Vasoda, who, if you're a fan of Mr. Science Theater, you will probably recognize him from Wild World of Batwoman, Daddy-O, or Attack of the Giant Leeches. He directed a rather interesting experimental horror film called Daughter of Horror that was completely without dialogue. After its initial run, that eventually got re-released with narration by, of all people, Ed McMahon, who went on to be Johnny Carson's sidekick on The Tonight Show. Probably this film is best known for the fact that Robert Heinlein, the famed science fiction author, sued it because the plot was a little too similar to his book, The Puppet Masters, a book which itself got adapted into a movie in the 90s. Well, we started our film with a married couple, Glenn and Jody, and they're returning to town, and they see a strange object, and they go to investigate.
What is it?
I don't know.
News of this discovery soon reaches Washington, where Senator Powers is dispatched, more or less, to go to this small little town and disprove all this nonsense about a ship from outer space. It's obviously a hoax of some kind. When he arrives, Glenn, who is the mayor's son, by the way, clues him in on some strange happenings that have occurred since that object has appeared.
Here in town, Mr. Powers. As of last night, we've got 3 murders in our hands.
The mayor?
No, at least we're hoping against it. He's disappeared, though. There's no word of any kind.
Sounds to me like the Department of Law Enforcement has an abundant supply of bunglers. Do I have transportation? All right, let's get out to that ship or cone or whatever it is.
And now we are introduced to our hero, Dr. Paul Kettering, who is exploring the cone.
What's this? What's it mean?
It means the tunnel is cyclic.
He just fires a gun into it. Scientific exploration. Sorry. Anyway, the word comes out that the mayor's returned, and when everyone goes to see him, he's acting a little strange.
Where you been all this time, Mayor?
I'm on to Cape Powers, down from Washington. I'm here to keep this spaceship business in check. Don't you think you picked a very poor time to absence yourself from office?
Washington is not running this town. I am.
Dad, Mr. Powers is only trying to help.
Are you siding against your father?
Sorry, Dad, but you don't look well.
I feel fine.
And then, all hell breaks loose. Performing an autopsy, they find a strange slug-like creature attached to the back with some things inserted into his neck. But it's kind of complicated. I'll let them explain.
He would have died anyway.
It works like this, Powers. That thing on the back of the mayor's neck had two piercing instruments. They attach themselves to the central nervous system at the base of the neck. Now, we don't quite know how it worked, but when the thing was crushed and the instruments withdrawn, they secreted something in the form of an acid.
Well, it'd be nice being the producer and star. You can just take someone's lines and give them to yourself. But basically, the mayor would have only lived another day once the acid was injected into his system. And while they take the slug to the lab to work on, the other slugs who have taken over other people are looking to enlarge their ranks, as it were. Kind of a hostile recruitment, you might say. Meanwhile, a body is found at the site. Everybody goes back, and here, Kettering's associate speculates maybe the cone isn't a ship. Maybe it's a fuel tank, and it got discarded, and the real ship is out there somewhere. So to eat up running time, everybody separates and goes into the woods. Paul and Alice, they find another dead body, and they hear some slugs moving around, but they get away. Glenn and Jody, unfortunately, get trapped in a burning cabin by one of the townspeople who's been taken over by the slugs. Not exactly the most exciting of action sequences. Oh well. But we then come to the creepiest scene in the entire film. The slugs target Paul's assistant / love interest, Alice. Although they are unaware of this happening, they find another, this time living body, over by the site. And he's recognized as Professor Helsing, a prominent geologist / archaeologist who had gone missing some years earlier. Taking him to the hospital where they hope to get information from him before he dies from the acid, he gives them the clue to where the slugs came from.
Parasites from the cone. What is the secret of the code?
Carboniferous.
Carboniferous. Carboniferous age.
What's Carboniferous age?
200 million years ago, the coal and oil forming period began. Geologists refer to it as the Carboniferous age.
Right. They're not from outer space. They're from inner space. Well, Powers now sees they've got to get help. But in a move from invasion of the Body Snatchers, all communication's been cut off. And things leading out of town to get away have been blocked. Well, nothing else they can do. Paul and Glenn climb down into the cone again, where they meet Professor Cole, who's Helsing's associate, in a room full of the slugs. Now, you need a really good actor with a really distinctive voice and a lot of gravitas to really sell himself as a representative of this alien species.
Come in, gentlemen. You have no choice. You may stop there.
Good choice. Leonard Nimoy.
As here as there is among mankind, we will not engage in combat, nor violence of any kind. Why should we? When we can scatter quietly like seeds in the wind.
You mean spread like a disease, like some vile plague from the corruptions of the earth?
Well, now that they know the plan, which was pretty obvious if you really want to know about it, think about it, Paul and Glenn fight their way back up to the top. The controlled deputy had followed them down. And then Paul comes up with the idea to electrocute all the slugs before they can get out. And they set up a circuit. All they have to do now is fire a harpoon gun. Don't ask. To complete the circuit, and everything will be electrocuted. But the slugs pull out their trump card.
Paul, you must listen to me. What I have to say means everything.
Paul, being the manly man he is, being the 50s after all, goes up to try and talking him out of killing the slugs.
If it takes me the rest of my life, I'll find a way of freeing you. I believe in that so strongly, I know I won't fail.
Never. How could I ever think that I loved you?
Oh, did not see that coming. Well, mortally wounded, Paul does the only thing he can and decides to sacrifice himself for humanity. Glenn is racked with conscience, or well, guilt, racked with conscience. What am I saying? He's not sure he can do it, but the fate of humanity is resting in his hands. Well, after that, nothing left to do but climb down in to make sure they're all dead. They are. And then we get the most self-aggrandizing line ever put on film.
You're all dead, every last one of them.
No, there's still some people in town.
I'll attend to that. Watch my dust. We'll get them. Or you don't know Walter K. Powers.
Ugh. Well, that aside, the film does end with Glenn and Jody commiserating the loss of their friends and walking off and arm in arm as the end flashes on the screen. I like this film. It's a nice little low budget film. Very well done. Very well acted, well directed. It's got good editing. There's some suspenseful scenes. There's some ludicrously silly scenes, but it's 50s. The little slugs are kind of effective looking, considering they're homemade. I believe it was fur, toilet paper tubes, and some pipe cleaners. And they're just pulled along the strings. But, you know, sometimes homemade is just the way to go, especially when you don't have a budget. But for a film from the 50s, I thought it was very well done. Really exciting. A little derivative of Invasion of the Body Snatchers, but not too much. And not really much else to say about it, but really enjoyed it. It's too bad DeSoto did not do more directing, because he obviously had a flair for it. Well, that's all I've got for tonight. Please hit like, share, and subscribe. And please stay after for my favorite scene.